morning, Ibadan. Good morning, Nigeria. And welcome to another vibrant edition of Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television, your #1 source for the news you can use, the gist you can't miss, and the energy to kick off your day.
Yes, it's Thursday, the 22nd of May, 2025, and we're coming to you live with hot blend of news, analysis, gist, and stories that matter. I am Abby Dickinson.
And I am Samson Balogun, and together we will be your host for the next Check Your Trends. And, of course, to get you up, check your trends. And, of course, to get you up to speed with Daybreak News, newspaper headlines, and much more.
All right, coming up on the show today, we'll be talking about the worrying rise in inmate escapes from correctional centers across Nigeria. What exactly is going wrong across Nigeria? What exactly is going wrong? Security lapses, internal sabotage?
Well, what we'll talk about
sabotage?
Well, what we'll talk about incessant escape from prisons in Nigeria and jailbreaks. This from prisons in Nigeria and jailbreaks. This has been a topic that should be of national discourse when we talk about jailbreaks, because at the end of the day, it also brings us to the topic of security in our prisons in Nigeria. Then how secured are these prisons, and then how up to date are these facilities? Because if we continue to have jailbreaks in Nigeria, means that we are putting Nigerians' lives in jeopardy. That's a big problem. There's a
lot, there's a lot of factors, there, and then you can look at inadequate security measures, just like you said. Also, inadequate training of personnel is important. What about overcrowding? It will be part of it too.
That's a major topic anyway, because when you look at the benchmark for prisoners in a particular cell compared to what we have in Nigeria, I think it's a problem, because you realize that the prisons are overcrowded. And then lately, new prisons are being built. But then, what do we? Which means that we should treat the area of corruption in the country.
Exactly.
If that one is sorted out, I think we have less people.
Corruption, and then you also look at other issues or another area, broader link for that. Security measures could also result to, it could also be like terrorism or even organized crime, because when you have their people in prison, they want to do
in the area of insurgency in the country. That happened in Abuja. Was broken September 7, 2010, and then suspected Boko Haram militants attacked the Bauchi prison, and 700 inmates escaped. The Abolongo prison in Oyo Town, actually, a few years ago, also suffered the same issue, while when Rauf Aregbesola, former Minister for Interior, was former Minister for Interior, was there at the time. The jail was broken. Then how many of these inmates? I think there should be accountability. If we had jailbreaks, how many of these
recaptured back?
Inmates were actually recaptured back?
I mean, the latest one, not this one, it just happened this week again. That's the one at Ilesha that happened recently.
Prison.
But in March, this one, it just happened this week again. That's the one at Ilesha that happened recently.
Prison.
But in March, we had, the Cotton Cafe prison. Correct. We had, the Cotton Cafe prison. Correctional center, so to state, where about 12 inmates, escaped, but they recaptured 3. State where about 12 inmates, escaped, but they recaptured 3.
No reports yet. Attacked the prison, and 270 inmates.
No reports yet.
Attacked the prison, and 270 inmates actually escaped. How many of the 270 were recaptured?
I think it's
how many of the 270 were recaptured?
I think it's quite tough. It might be tough. It might be very tough to actually recover
inmates.
Be very tough to actually recover
inmates. Judging by the current spate of people looking the other way in the country, then it might be a little bit difficult to, I think there is a mantra now, if you see something, say something. If you realize there are people in your community that have not been there before, ask questions, because eventually they will settle down, and some of them might just be hardened criminals, and the only thing they can do after coming out of prison, especially in that situation, is to commit more crimes, and that puts your community in jeopardy.
The system, the prison system and the justice system,
of
you
course,
know, as
it
a
gives,
whole.
so
it's not just a risk.
Some other inmates have the impetus to...
You know, when you do the crime,
yeah, you do the time. All right, that takes us away. All right, that takes us away from this segment.
Okay, if you're just joining us, this is Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. On the show today, we'll be looking at something that never seems to go away: police brutality in Nigeria. The question today: have things changed since EndSARS, or are we still trapped in a cycle of abuse and silence?
And of course, we have got Trend Watch, your early morning scroll through what's trending on social media from Nigeria to around the world. Plus, in sports, a roundup of the biggest updates from the local and international football and basketball.
But first, let's start with what you need to know right now. Daybreak news coming your way with top headlines across politics, economy, and society. After that, we'll check the newspaper front pages and share our hot takes.
It's going to be engaging, informative, and real. So grab your coffee, grab your akamu, settle in, and let's get your morning started the Dominion TV way.
You know the vibe. This is Daybreak Live, and we're just getting started.
Join the conversation by sending your comments on our social media handles. On Instagram, it is at Dominion Broadcast, Facebook and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to that channel at Dominion Broadcast. You can also watch us live on our website, www.dominion.org.ng, www.dominion.org.ng. All right, let's go to our news desk. Asfron Kegiwa Onofua is waiting.
morning. This is Daybreak News on Dominion Television. I'm Runke Giwa Onofua. President Bola Tinubu has extended heartfelt felicitations to two British Nigerians, Okweyemi Bright, of good works by Nigerians in the diaspora, and consistently promoting the values of honesty, integrity, hard work, and commitment to the well-being of others, adding that their stories will inspire countless young people both at home and in the diaspora to pursue excellence and serve their communities with distinction. Bright was sworn in as the civic mayor of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Senator Oluremi Tinubu has called on Nigerians to celebrate the nation's cultural diversity, and promote unity through dialogue and mutual respect. In a message to mark the 2025 World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, observed globally and recognizing shared humanity. Senator Tinubu encouraged Nigerians to celebrate the country's rich cultural heritage, urging all citizens to listen with empathy and lead with understanding. Now, former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, has dismissed the wave of political defections, saying most defectors are motivated by hunger and self-preservation, not ideology or principle. Speaking in an interview, Lawal drew a stark line between two types of politicians, stating that there are those who enter politics to serve the people and those driven by personal gain. He added that the defections were more about survival than loyalty, describing the trend as a reflection of character. Now, the House of Representatives for Nigerian pensioners nearly 2 years ago. The resolution followed a motion moved by Deputy Chief Whip Ibrahim Isiaka during plenary, expressing concern over the prolonged non-payment of the presidentially approved support packages, and called for urgent action to address the situation. Transparency and accountability in the disbursement. Professor Ishak Oloyede has dismissed claims of conspiracy against a part of the country following the technical glitch recorded in the 2025. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has called for funding for the Transmission Company of Nigeria to boost. Adelabu made the call while speaking at a two-day retreat organized by the Senate Committee on Power, arguing that funding should be made available for TCN in the appropriation bill. Adelabu added that the persistent crisis threatening to derail progress in the sector continues to cripple service delivery nationwide in spite of landmark reforms in the electricity sector. The Central Council of Ibadan Indigenes, in collaboration with Ibarapa Consultative Forum, have disclosed that it had submitted a memorandum to the National Assembly for the creation of Ibadan State. The President General of the Council, Adeniyi Ajewole, announced this at the press conference held at the Ibadan House, Okearemo in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. He stressed that the creation of the state is overdue, calling on all and sundry to support it. Now, Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has ordered a full-scale investigation into the killing of a 14-year-old boy, Kehinde Alade, in Oyo State. In a statement by the Force Public Relations Officer, ACP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, the IGE condemned the shooting and confirmed that the officer involved has been taken into custody. Recall that Alade was on his way to an examination center to sit for the ongoing West African Senior School Certificate examination in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, when a stray bullet hit him. And commercialization have called on the private sector to take a more active role in resolving Gaja Renewables 1WP interconnected solar mini-grid project in Kano as a powerful example of what is possible through private-public. You can visit our website on www.minigrid project in Kano as a powerful example of what is possible through dominion.org.ng to watch us live and interact with org.ng to watch us live and interact with us. You can also follow us across our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube and LinkedIn at Dominion News. I'm Ronke Giwa Onafuwa. Good morning.
right, you'll still stay tuned to Daybreak Live, reaching you from Dominion Television here in Ibadan. It's now time to look at our newspapers. Let's see what's trending on the headlines of our different dailies. Okay, I'll start with the Guardian newspaper, and we have a lot of stories on the Guardian. The major story here says, Zulum flags complicity in terrorism war amid push for new investment. You can find this on page 6 of the Guardian newspapers. We also have on the top left-hand corner, 2027, forget defections, hungry Nigerians hold ace. And this is coming from the executive governor of Oyo State. Makinde tells PDP, and you can also find the story on news page 3 of the Guardian newspapers. Also under security, with over 2,000 prisoners at large. This you can find on page 3 of the Guardian newspapers. Why I didn't yield to calls for resignation by JAMB registrar. A story is on page 3 of the Guardian newspapers. Also coming from the Guardian newspapers, reps rallies federal government to rescue stranded Nigerians in Saudi Arabia. The story is on page 4. NMDPRA to cut petroleum truck loading capacity to 45,000 liters. You can find this on page 29. Also from the Guardian newspapers, gladiators sheath sword, restore calm to Rivers polity. The story is on page 4. And your testament of our global impact. Tinubu hails British Nigerian mayors. And the story is on page 4. Manufacturers groan over 37 lending rate, cite threat to productivity. News page 6. And Lagos state government says Ikeja, Lagos Island, Lekki top states crime locations. The story is on page 5 of the Guardian newspapers. Nigerians GDP per capita too low, needs growth to boost income, meet aspirations. This is the business story, and you can find that on business page 15 of the Guardian newspapers. All right, away from the Guardian, we'll go to the Leadership newspaper, and the story here says outcry on terrorist informants, outcry over soldiers, politicians' involvement. It has the riders, CSOs, security, say information leak emboldening terrorists. This you can find on page 4 of the Leadership newspapers. Cut interest rate now. Manufacturers beg the Central Bank of Nigeria. And also UTME JAMB to conduct mop-up examinations for absentees. This you can find on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper, the Leadership newspaper. All right, more stories from the Leadership newspaper. Nakon airlifts 33,689 pilgrims to Saudi Arabia. On page 7, you find that story. Coup rumors cause anxiety in Côte d'Ivoire. You find that story on page 15. And from Abuja, Wike defends 1.7 of course, Naira after CBN interest rate hold. The story is on page 25 of the Leadership newspaper. Okay, if you are interested in any of the stories, do grab a copy of the Leadership newspaper today. Okay, away from the Leadership newspaper, let's see what's happening on Tribune. That's the Nigerian Tribune. We also have the major story there. 2027, ADC meets today, may ratify coalition. With the riders set to receive reports of negotiating teams, opposition heavyweights settle on ADC as coalition platform. You can find the story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. The story says, forget defections. It will be hungry Nigerians versus APC in 2027. And this is coming from the executive governor of Oyo State, Engineer Seyi Makinde. You can find that story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune, Osun PDP senators endorse Tinubu for 2027. Also on the left corner of the Nigerian Tribune, LCCI and MAN, that's the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, decry 27.5% monetary policy rate. The story is on page 6. And no lady is on trial for converting to Christianity in Zamfara, says Zamfara state government, and this story is on page 15. Also coming from the Nigerian Tribune, again, 4 persons abducted by gunmen in Kogi State, and the story is on page 24. And we have the story that's been trending for some days now. Ibadan killing of the West African Senior School Certificate Examination student. IGP orders full investigation. You can find that story on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on UTME story, why I didn't resign, says Oloyede, denies conspiracy theory against certain parts of the country. Also to hold mop-up exams for absentee candidates. This you can find on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. And also coming from the international story on Nigerian Tribune, Trump ambushes Ramaphosa during White House meeting. That's the South African president. It has the rider confronts South African president with allegations of genocide against white farmers. You can find the story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. All right, from the Nigerian Tribune, this morning we move to the Blueprint newspapers. And on top there, the top story, the very top says, no lady on trial for converting to Christianity in Zamfara. This is coming from the Zamfara state government aid, and that story is on page 15. We have more stories coming from the Blueprint newspaper here. Wike's 85% and 2024 budget implementation impressive, says Senate. With the rider, minister commits 85% of 1.7 trillion naira 2025 appropriation bill to abandoned projects. Also, 2025 UTME glitches, why I won't bow to resignation pressures. This is coming from Oloyede, and you can find the story on page 7. Also, Benue NAS APC caucus, Osun PDP senators endorse Tinubu for 2027. And the business news of the Blueprint newspapers. Also coming from the Blueprint newspapers, 25 years after, Ekiti orders community to elect monarch in 21 days. That story is on page 14. And over 77% of pilgrims airlifted for 2025 Hajj. This is coming from Nakon, and you can find the story on page 15. 5 bag 1 month jail for letting goats destroy government plants in Kano State. Well, that's an interesting story to read on page 15 of the Blueprint newspaper. And we'll take this coming from the governor of Edo State. Cult-related violence deprives Edo State $1 billion investments annually. The story is on page 9, and this story is also coming from the governor of Edo State, Okpebolo. You can grab a coffee. Sorry, I said a coffee. You can grab a copy of the Blueprint newspaper and read on that interesting story. All right, away from the Blueprint newspaper, let's get to This Day newspaper. After 5 billion Bonga North, Shell to take Bonga Southwest FID by 2027. All right, this is also saying Zulum to Tinubu to end insecurity. Listen to military, not psycho fans. Okay, 27.5% NPR, MAN, LCCI, NECA lament prohibitively expensive credit. All right, we'll be talking about more on the newspaper headlines for this morning with our analyst who is in the studio right now. All right, just after this break, analyst comes up and we'll be delving into a lot of topics, talking of stories trending on the newspapers this beautiful Thursday. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. It's still Daybreak Live. Welcome back. It's still Daybreak Live, reaching you from Dominion Television here in Ibadan. And this is where we have our analysts look into our stories, you know, look deeply and analyze, try to dissect all the stories you've heard from the newspaper headlines this morning. And I have with me Mr. Seun Oluwole. Good to have you today, Mr. Seun. I hope we'll be doing justice to all the trending news.
Glad to be here this morning.
Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. All right, I'll start with this talk. You know, there's this outcry over soldiers and politicians' involvement, you know, when it comes to terrorism and insecurity. And CSO security experts want bad eggs flushed out, say information leak is emboldening terrorists. What do you think? You think politicians are actually involved in matters like this?
Well, good morning once again. On this particular issue of involvement of politicians and personnel of our army, of the Nigerian army, in the involvement of insecurity and the outcries that have been going on and their operations worldwide, now or nationwide, I will vividly say that insecurity can thrive without some sort of backing. The ideologies backing these people, the ideologies of this insecurity, these bandits, these terrorist groups, where do they get it from? Is it not political? Is it not political masterminded? And talking about equipment being used, where are they getting it from? Somewhere, somehow, even intelligence gathering. Are we now saying over the years we've not been able to gather intelligence enough to tackle insecurity in Nigeria? Like, don't our security agencies like the Nigerian Army, the defense headquarters and everything, what is the defense headquarters actually doing? How are they doing? What are they doing concerning information gathering concerning terrorists? And terrorists can actually know when an entourage of soldiers are moving into a particular area and lay ambush on them. So who is actually giving them information? And we can't gather information about them. So if you are talking about their involvement, there was a time I remember that a coalition of some external forces came into Nigeria to help us concerning this Boko Haram situation or the terrorism situation and all the stuff. And they have to pull out because whatever it is they are doing is being leaked. The CIA coming in, the KGB, the FBI, and all the stuff, and the Mossad, they can't come in because we ourselves are giving them information. And the issue of our politicians backing them up, I think there's something wrong somewhere. Like there's a Yoruba adage that says that a stranger can't just come into town and point at the graveside of a blind man. If you understand that in Yoruba, if I can put it in Yoruba, but this is an English program, so don't let me delve into that. So that means for somebody to know about your secret, you must have told somebody.
Okay.
So only a friend knows your secret, and only he can tell it, by late Bob Marley.
So you agree that politicians are involved as well?
I agree to some extent, yeah. Okay. There's a major involvement here.
So how
even externally, there's an involvement. Where do these people, do you know how much an ALOX in RPGs, rocket propeller grenades, where do they get it from? And only do our soldiers have this kind of ammunition on them? Where are they getting all these things from? And who's funding them?
Exactly.
And who's funding them?
I mean, there was some time.
And why have we been able to fish them out?
That's the thing, because I think some years back there was this story of, there are people and we'll mention names, but up until now, we've not seen one name.
We only mention names, then I think we are really livered enough to go after them.
Have names been mentioned?
Well, even if we mention them.
Have names been mentioned?
Okay, now what about the issue of the fund that is supposed to go under the administration of this Minister for State of Defense, Obani Koro, and the funds are actually being used for funds that are supposed to equip the soldiers going into somewhere for political rallies in Akure, being distributed in Akure somewhere. So what about that? Is that not sabotage?
Okay, so Zulum is saying to Tinubu to end insecurity, listen to military, not sycophants. And it says government can end this scourge in 6 months with, you know, I'm trying to find out. It says declares some soldiers sabotaging fight. Senate asks military to halt fresh terrorist attack in Northeast. Why would they ask them to halt? And if it's 6 months, you think we can actually do this in 6 months? But we keep hearing that the military, you know, has done a lot for end of Boko Haram, but still.
Terrorism all over the world, I always tell people, is like an hydra. You cut off one head, 2 more pop up. So terrorism don't die.
It cannot end.
You can't end it.
Really?
You can only strive against it.
We keep striving.
If you wipe out Boko Haram today, another set of terrorists will come up with their own ideologies.
So what can be done?
So that's why we are talking about politically based interest.
So you mean nothing can be done?
We can actually stem it in the bud, but it will always strive. Everywhere in the world there is terrorism.
We have been talking about stemming for how many years now?
As Hezbollah, they are actually rooted out from Gaza, or from where?
So we should use the same method.
Approach. There's a guerrilla. This is a guerrilla warfare. These people don't believe in a normal conventional warfare where you have to, let's say, and throw bombs to them and sit and relax, and they can attack you any point in time. So you should be ready. It's not until, I think even the northern side of Nigeria, why can't we just place a particular operational center there, immovable, and equip it with more soldiers, but not undermining the other zones?
Okay.
Because when they think, or when they see that you have actually kept them in one side,
they can move to some
other areas and still come up with their attack. And their ideologies are still the same. they have grievances against the federal government, which we don't actually know. But they come out, kill people, maim, destroy. And one thing that keeps bothering me is that Governor Zulum keeps doing his best. Over the week, he was actually in Mate or where he even spent the night there, and he was even talking about, but he can't do it alone. He can't do it alone. This thing has gone to a level, to a scale of, we have to declare a state of emergency on that particular issue itself.
All right, let's move to something else from that. Forget defections, it will be hungry Nigerians versus APC in 2027. This is coming from the executive governor of Oyo State. What is your take there?
That's it's an interesting one, really. I've said it here before that. Forget defections. People will go out and express their grievances, whatever it is. Now, Governor Seyi Makinde has said the right thing. It is not actually the governors that will vote themselves in, but the people themselves that will vote all these governors at the end of the day. But we need to encourage our people to come out and vote and express their minds, their grievances against the government. Let them come out and vote en masse. There's this bill in the Senate or National Assembly that wants to make voting compulsory. You don't need to actually now say we have to make voting compulsory, and if you don't vote, you'll be liable to this, to that, for that. What we should do, what's the job of the National Orientation Agency? Let us come out, educate people on voting. Okay. Let them know their rights.
You know, we've not been educated enough.
Enough, yes. Oh, okay. Enough. I will tell you that 75% of the voting populace are not even the elite. They are not the elites. There are people down there that actually voting, even if you want them to vote, they are the people that you can easily buy their vote and their conscience.
Okay, just hold on. All right, we'll just take a quick break and we'll be right back. It's still Daybreak Live. So thank you so much, but we have to leave right now on this segment. Mr. Wale, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For coming. I believe next time we'll have more time to discuss.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll be right back after this break.
right, this is the big story on Daybreak Live, where we bring clarity to the headlines and depth to the discussions that matter. Today, we spotlight a painful yet pressing issue: police brutality in Nigeria. From the streets of Ibadan to the suburbs of Port Harcourt, countless voices have risen, demanding justice, accountability, and reform. But has enough changed? And what hope is there for real transformation? Stay with us as we hear the facts, the stories, and the way forward. Good morning once again. The show is still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. Today we'll be discussing police brutality in Nigeria. And I won't be doing that alone this morning. I have with me, all the way from Lagos, Oba Adeoye. He's a media strategist and, of course, a journalist. Good morning to you, Oba Adeoye.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on the show this morning. All right, there has been a lot of calls as regards the current spate of police brutality in Nigeria. And then I want to ask you this question this morning, and I would like to put you on the spotlight. Do you believe police brutality in Nigeria is a deliberate tool of state oppression or simply a case of poor training and discipline?
Okay, I think I will go with the second option that you just threw at me. I think it's a reflection of many years abroad that we've had. We are a people who pay attention to detail, and that is the representation of what we are saying. Starting from the process of our policemen, you can see lapses, you can see situations where processes are not transparent. It may not be a deliberate action to suppress reflection or a result of what we have planted right now. Let's look at police recruitment. When was the last time you heard about police recruitment? Maybe you heard how many people around you who applied actually got the job based on merit and not those smart. So if you answer the question, the best is as good as mine. So you cannot have such a rotten system and expect things to work perfectly. What about after recruitment? What is the level of the training that they expose these policemen to? The case is also as good as mine. Let me go back to recruitment. Then you will discover that most people who are wearing police uniforms are policemen on our roads, stations, did not really think out or dream to become policemen. They found themselves there as a result of not being able to get jobs elsewhere or not being able to make a living, maybe elsewhere. Some of them are poorly educated, their formal education is very poor. So you and I, we are road spend on the road their official language, pidgin language. That's it, they are not speaking Igbo or outside or when you come across them. So this, what you are seeing, police brutality you are seeing today, is a result of many years of fraud, many years of not paying attention to details that we are put in the system, and what we are seeing today is manifestation of that fraud. So I wouldn't say it's deliberate action of powers that be to suppress it. Of course, it may happen in pockets of events across the nation, like we have, in recent history, maybe. But on the overall, I think it's a function of poor education and poor exposure of and of course poor administration can also tag as poor oversight process of people who are supposed to manage this institution. You keep on having this until we put certain measures in place, which includes two that I've mentioned, and also ensuring that people or policemen who run against rules of engagement, who go against the law, guiding police operations, are made full run of law. there are instances, there are incidents where policemen were caught, you know, hard in the cookie jar, and at the end of the day, the point where they committed that crime to another part of the nation. There was one in Lagos recently of a reported case of a policeman who raped a young lady in Lagos. And when that case was brought to the attention of police authorities, rather than punishing this policeman or probably, you know, dismissing him from the force, we hear stories of man being, you know, redeployed from Lagos, something nobody know that. When we are ready, we'll start seeing result. We cannot keep doing the same thing same way and expect results.
All right, you talked about you talked about police officers who were actually caught, you know, in the act of brutalizing Nigerians, and then eventually they walk free. Is this a result of systemic failure or political protection?
I think it's both. Systemic failure will lead to political protection when don't have institutions, but they have strong people. Don't have strong institutions, they have strong people. So the strong people in charge of those institutions will end up manipulating the institution to suit them politically. So it's not just about now. Don't forget that police reflect kind of society where they operate. Police cannot divorce police from the Nigerian system. So what you are seeing playing out in police is a result of the reflection of what has come of our society, where the law is no longer above people, but people are above law. When politicians and you know, their friends in these organizations, when they try to bend the rule of the system to suit their own political gain, you will keep on having this kind of problem. It is a no.
Back from that short break. The show is still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television, and this is the big story. We've been talking about police brutality in the country. Let's take you through the history of police brutality in Nigeria. And of course, I still have with me in the studio this morning, Oba Adeoye, all the way from Lagos. All right, in 1966 to 1999, the military dictatorship era, which was described as a systemic use of police for political repression and human rights violations. Now, in the 2000s, we had the rise of SARS, increasing the report of extrajudicial killings, torture, and extortion. Now down to 2022 to 2024. Continued report, sporadic protests continued, lack of reform, implementation fuels public distrust. Now, I want to ask you this question this morning, Oba Adeoye. Why do you think Nigerian government ignored NSAS panel recommendations a few years ago?
I didn't get that.
Why do you think the Nigerian government ignored the NSAS panel recommendations?
You're talking about NSAS
panel recommendations, yes.
Implemented the recommendations.
Yes, in a state like Lagos or your state, there were recommendations by the NSAS panel, but till now, those reports have not been implemented in the states.
That is part of the state failure. Remember that immediately after the NSAS protest, that killed several lives in Lagos and several other parts of the country, the government itself, raised a panel of inquiry to find out what led to NSAS protest and, of course, how to prevent a future recurrence of such revolution, because it's beyond the protest, it's a revolution, really. And at the end of the day, the panel came up with a white paper which was submitted to the government. And in the process, politics came to play. And the government, told us barefaced that the NSAS panel has not, really done well, blah, 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 blah. Just because the NSAS panel indicted the government in, the NSAS debacle. The government felt so bad, and the government was not bold enough to admit its own failure and make amends. It is needed. So,
are you saying the government? Are you
such a government to implement such a report? A government that is not ready, to admit its own shortcomings. A government that is not ready, that is not available to.
All right, I want to be clear on this one. Are you saying the government have failed to actually admit their own wrongdoings in the last NSAS protest? Are you there?
Hello?
I'm with you. Are you saying the government failed?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Are you saying the government failed to admit their own involvement in the last NSAS protest in the country?
Yes, it was widely reported. The government itself, when they received the white paper recommendations of the NSAS panel, they kicked against the recommendations of the panel. And, they made it appear like the panel dropped. Meanwhile, it was the same government that set up the panel of inquiry. You understand? So why did you set up the panel of inquiry when you knew that you were not going to take the recommendations of the panel, and that when you knew that you are going to waste the time of Nigerians, you are going to waste the time of the panel, the time of the media covering the panel? So it was a huge letdown for people who had expected something tangible to be done at the end of that panel of inquiry. Even the federal government, remember that it took President Muhammadu Buhari several days before he could address the nation about the NSAS. And, we had report that the president did not act until he was told that the protest could lead to an overthrow of his own government. So he was much more interested in the overthrow of his government than in the sanity of the society. And when he came to address the nation, he addressed the disbandment of SARS, and he was proposing a replacement with another, a paramilitary organization, which Nigerians kicked against. And I can tell you categorically that in places like Lagos, SARS has actually returned, although in a different form, in a different name, but SARS has returned. You see people dressed in the notorious way that the defunct SARS, used to dress, and you see them stop on the road, stopping people. They come in different kind of names: anti-courtesan, anti-this, special squad, and so on and so forth. They are still there, and what we are trying to avoid has not gone away, and that is why you are having. That's why you had what happened in Ibadan on Tuesday, I guess, where the young chap was, brought down. It's a painful development that such a young man who is, serious about his future could be sacrificed by the nation or by the organization that is expected to protect it. By the way, let's commiserate with that family and the people of Oyo State on that. On the law.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this: is the Nigeria police more of a threat to citizens than criminals?
Of course, the answer is you and I know the answer. You know, Nigeria police are expected to protect the citizens, but unfortunately, the same citizen you are expected to protect is the same citizen that you are harassing, is the same citizen that you are killing, is the same citizen that you do all sorts of. Let's take this example. The Oyo State government is trying to push all the blames on the reckless driver, the father of the boy that died. But again, we should ask ourselves a question: what are you using a rifle to do to control traffic? It's probably in Nigeria or in some other failed state that you see policemen on the road carrying rifle to control traffic. Traffic offense are civil offenses. Why do you need to cut the tire of the vehicle? That's what? Is the person a criminal? Have you been able to establish that something that the law is not in support of, that warranted the use of a firearm? You are supposed to protect such a person. All you could have done is take details of the cab numbers and then go ahead and apprehend the person later on somewhere else, and not to open firearm against them. So that is what we are talking about: in poor training and poor understanding of rules of engagement. The Nigerian police still operate today with the mindset of the colonial era. They still operate today with the mindset of they are to protect the powers that be against the citizens. But it's the other way around. You are serving the citizens, because the money used to run the police is is part of what the citizens pay in terms of tax to the government. So you're supposed to protect the taxpayers against oppression and not the other way around. So the problem is multifaceted, and until we are serious enough and we are practical enough to address this issue, we'll continue having this debate, we'll continue having this discussion over time. Reckless use of firearm it's out of it, and misplaced priorities is another thing. Misplaced priorities is another problem that we have here. Why would you be much more interested in protesters, for an instance, or in traffic offender, more, or Yahoo boys, so to say? Why are you more interested in those ones than the real criminals, than the criminals in northern Nigeria? Today, we are talking about the military coming around to help Nigeria fight insurgency in northern Nigeria, which of course should ordinarily be the role of the police. But again, like I said, the police is much more interested in running after traffic offenders, in running after Yahoo boys, than running after the real criminals. And it's pathetic until we are ready to address this situation practically, and
talking about addressing the situation. How will Nigerians address this? And of course, demand for accountability when even politicians are using the police to settle political and personal scores.
Let me remind you of a popular quote by an American member of parliament. He said, "The power of the people is more than the people in power." Did you get that? The power of the people is more than the people in power. That shows that the power actually rests with the people. But when you choose, corrupt politicians ahead of, politicians whose records, when you support politicians based on ethnicity, religion, and party affiliation, you keep on having situations like this. So part of the problem is this: the leadership of the police, they keep on paying lip service to their oversight function. Do you know how many policemen that have been caught in the act, which police authorities have told us that they are going to investigate and punish? Now tell me, after the announcement of the investigation, tell me how many times The police came back to tell us that the investigations have been concluded, and this is the result of our findings, and this is action that we are going to take. We hear more of the start of investigation than the close of investigation in Nigeria. I told you a case of a policeman in Lagos who, allegedly raped an underage, and rather than being punished, rather than being made to face the full wrath of the law, because he had some godfathers who are in the police, they had to move him away from Lagos to somewhere else just for him to evade justice. So that is the problem. Look, let me tell you something. Nigerians are not too difficult to manage. Nigerians are naturally timid people. When they know that the law will take its course, regardless of who you are, regardless of the name you answer, regardless of who your godfather is, you'll see that people will fall in line, including the police.
Obadoye, my last question for you this morning. My last question for you this morning before I let you go. Now, is there a realistic path to police reforms in Nigeria, or the system is to be totally dismantled and rebuilt from scratch?
Yes, we can do reforms. If you dismantle it's part of reforms, because it's still going to be the police. Okay, now that takes us to the argument about state police, because if you look at politicians, they have been paying lip service to the institutionalism of state police, to the establishment of state police. They have made it a political, game rather than facing the reality. This is the time for Nigeria to start talking about state police, not just talking about it. It is the time to establish state police across the nooks and crannies of this country. So to reform the police is not difficult, and people in position of authority, they know this fact, but they are not interested because of the rot there is also serving them. You have more policemen protecting the elites, protecting the VVIPs than you have on my street here. You have more policemen, carrying the handbags of politicians' wives than you have policemen in the corners of our street. They know what to do and they know how to do it. There is a need for a total rebranding of the police, starting from the recruitment point to the point where you train and you train them over and over, and to the point where you ensure that the rule of law in the police is not tampered with, is not joked with. When a policeman goes against rule of engagement, when a policeman is caught in the act of committing a crime, don't try to protect him, because even if you dismantle the police and you put a new police in place, are they not going to be manned by the same people that we have in the system? Are we going to import people from America? Are we going to import people from Ghana? They are still going to be manned by the same people we have. All you just have to do is to change the name and probably change the color of their uniform and probably change the structure. But you are still going to have Nigerians there. So police reform is important. It is right. It is right. State police is important. It is right. It is time for us to have state police in place. Okay? Now, I mentioned, bending the rule to suit politicians. Look at the appointment of the IGP, for an instance. Why do we still have that IGP in office, despite the obvious reasons that he should have resigned or he should have been retired by now? We still have him in office. Doing what? As what? Does it mean that Nigeria does not have other qualified policemen to serve as the IGP? We need to empower our organizations. We need to empower our institutions to act in accordance with the law, regardless of who is there. We cannot keep on bending the laws all of the time to suit our purpose, and we expect to have an improved police system or a different police. No, it is not going to work. Now, in the case of this Kehinde Alade that was, brought down in his prime in Ibadan, let's see what happens to the policeman who, was, caught in that act. Already, the government is trying to push, a narrative trying to blame the father of the boy solely. Of course, the man had fault. The man had fault as a father. Even if you are not a father, you are not expected to drive against traffic. That is not the way to go. But okay, he has driven against traffic. He's shooting using live bullets. The solution to him driving against traffic? No, that is not the solution. So the policeman and the man both have a case to answer before the law. Let the law take its full course. Let the two of them face the full wrath of the law, and let nobody try to change the narrative, and let nobody try to, to come to the head of any one of them. Let the law take its full course. Because
talking about police brutality, we are still talking about police brutality. And then I want to ask you this question and quickly link it up with what you are currently saying. You mentioned state policing in Nigeria, and when at the time people were clamoring for state policing, but then some states claimed they can't afford it, while some states keyed into it. Now that's, for me, brought into place the Amotekun Corps in the southwestern part of Nigeria. As we speak, the Amotekun are also on the field. They are doing their job. But how about training and empowerment in terms of equipment? If you are talking about state policing, will they be able to truly empower them with the necessary tools and equipment they will be needing?
We are saying all of this as, let's say hypothesis, you understand? But as we speak, we already have organizations taking the form and shapes of state police. In Lagos, we have LASMA, it's a form of state police. We have Neighborhood Watch, it's a form of state police. In other southwestern states, we have Amotekun that you mentioned, which also is a form of state police. Now, that is state police. Let me answer the question you raised, or the concern that you said some people raised, that some states may not be able to, establish or fund their own state police. It is not important that we start state police across 36 states of the Federation at a go. No. 2-3 states can come together, like in the case of Amotekun, and have their own joint policing system if they think they don't have enough resources to fund their state police. All these things are excuses manufactured by politicians to ensure that that idea of state police does not materialize. They know what to do. Like I said, if state A cannot fund its own independent state police, why not merge with state B, C, the neighboring state, and come to terms, have some agreement that let us put in place a kind of our own policing system. We recruit from among the locals here. They are not, posting somebody from Maiduguri to come and man the police system in Ikeja. No, we are going to recruit people from Ikeja to be part of this police system. In Lagos, the Neighborhood Watch, the Lagos Neighborhood Watch, those ones that wear blue and yellow, they are recruited from the community where they live, and that is where they serve. That is where they serve. Now, talking about training and maybe giving them tools to work with. Of course, the state government who want to create state police should know that the responsibility will lie on their shoulders. They need to. It's the same thing that applies to this federal police that we have. Do they have enough training? Do they have enough equipment? Did you listen to the Borno State Governor, Babagana Zulum, saying that even the insurgents, they have more equipment, they are more equipped than even the Nigerian military. How much more the police? So that is even the federal police. So what stops us from going the route of having state police system? Even if federal police are not well equipped. So let us find a way of solving these problems. Let's find a way of solving this problem, because even the state governors, they are not empowered. We call them chief security officer of their state, but they are not chief security officers of their state. The CP in a state, that's Commissioner of Police in the state, will wait for directive from Abuja before he acts on anything. The state governor cannot give directive to a CP, and the CP will carry it out almost immediately, especially when such decisions are deemed to be against the interests of people in position of authority. So we are just trying to create alibi for what is not. State police is ripe. We are a people of more than 230 million people. We cannot afford to rely on a single policing system. It is not done anywhere in the world. Check all the nations that are populated as Nigeria. They don't have a single federal police system. Go to a place like America. Some people will say America is more organized. Fine. You will go to universities. They have their own policing system. A university having its own policing system. What stops Nigerian state from going ahead with state police? They know what to do if they want to do state police. Somebody was saying that they need laws, they need to do this. When they wanted to change the national anthem, they didn't wait for anybody to change the national anthem. So if they want to institute the state police, they know how to do it and they know what to do. They are just paying lip service to that thing. And you know, the idea of state police has been on the front burner from the days when even the APC was in opposition. They were telling the PDP that, look, state police is the way to go. It was one of the loudest noise of the APC. But the moment they got to power, they forgot about the state police idea. They threw it away, and they are now paying lip service to it. They know what to do. State police it's time for us to have state police in Nigeria. It's time for us to recruit residents to be the police of their own community, and not that you post somebody from Ibadan to go and be policing a community in Benue. What does he know about Benue? How much of Benue does he understand? So recruit the police from among us. It's part of a way of solving this problem that we are talking about. Until we are ready to do the needful, we'll continue going in circles, and we'll continue paying lip service, and we'll continue, we'll continue blaming this, blaming that, until we are ready to make progress.
All right, the last question in 1 minute. In 1 minute before you go. Now, talking about community policing, state policing in Nigeria, and the current state of jungle justice that currently happens in our communities. Now, in putting that side by side, how well do you think state policing will tackle jungle justice in the country? In 1 minute before we go. Are you there? Oh, he's not there. That's, Obadi Oye there, speaking all the way from Lagos State. He's a journalist, and of course, he knows his onions when it comes to security in the countries. I guess that is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of the big story on Daybreak Live. That was the big story on Daybreak Live. Police brutality remains a wound that Nigeria must confront with sincerity, urgency, and justice. The call is clear for a system that protects, not oppresses, that serves, not silences. Thank you for joining the conversation. Up next is Daybreak Sports with Boluwaji Ogunmola. Until next time on the big story, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay safe. This show is still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. Don't go nowhere.
Hello, and many thanks for joining us on Daybreak Sport. I'm Boluwaji Ogunmola. Let's get into it this morning and start from the National Sport Festival, the 22nd edition of the Games, where Team Ogun's Kolade Otunla has won a historic men's 100-meter backstroke gold medal at the ongoing Games in Ogun State. Otunla has a finishing time of 1 hour, 2 minutes and 41 seconds, also broke the national and of course festival record set in 2018. In the women's 800-meter freestyle held earlier in the day, Ogun's Omolola Tobiloba also clinched a gold medal. Rush of medals for Ogun State in swimming. But let's talk about Team Oyo this morning, where Team Oyo continued their medal haul over there at the Games. I can inform you this morning that they've won 10 gold 9 silver and 16 bronze medals, a total of 35 medals as at last night. William Grace won bronze for Team Oyo in the women's dart event. Tawakalitu Yakin won silver for Team Oyo in the cycling women 1 kilometer individual pursuit. Isa Ajide also won 1 silver in taekwondo women featherweight for Team Oyo. Lawal Aderonke and Oyetunde Toyin won in the Trado Ayo women's doubles 1 silver. Williams Grace also won bronze for Team Oyo in the dart women's single event. Adeyemi Sahid won gold for Team Oyo in the dart men's 1301 singles event. Asheun Ayedun and Stephen Ogunwole won in the Ayo Olokmo doubles 1 bronze for Team Oyo. Hawao Alayode also won gold for Team Oyo in the taekwondo women featherweight event, while Madina Shitu won gold for Team Oyo in the Kung Fu event. Mutu Fatai also won bronze for Team Oyo in the Kung Fu event, while Remy Adedokum won bronze for Team Oyo in the Kung Fu 60 kg category. Sharif Ogunbanjo also won bronze for Team Oyo yesterday in a Kung Fu event. So big congratulations to Team Oyo as they continue to rack in medals at the games. From there, let's talk football and talk about the President Federation Cup. Kwara United and Abakaliki Football Club will clash in the final of the 2025 President Federations Cup. Giant Killers Abakaliki Football Club booked a spot in the final after a 5-4 penalty shootout win over Ikorodu City yesterday. The fiercely contested encounter, of course, ended goalless in regulation time. While in the day's other semi-final encounter, as you can see on your screen, Kwara United stunned the 5-time champions Rangers 1-0 at the Mobolaji Johnson Arena, Onikon, in Lagos yesterday. Kwara United and Abakale FC will both be aiming to win the President Federation Cup for the first time when they meet in the final later on this month. Of course, we wish the two teams all the very best. Well, from the President Federation Cup, let's talk about our Flying Eagles of Nigeria, where their captain, Daniel Bameye, is optimistic that the team will put up a better showing at the 2025 FIFA Under-20 World Cup holding in Chile later this year. Ali Zubair's team finished third at the just concluded 2025 Under-20 AFCON in Egypt. Well, the West Africans lost 1-0 to eventual champions, that's the South Africans. You call them the Amajita of South Africa in the semi-finals, before eventually overcoming host Egypt 4-1 on penalties in the third place match. Bameye, who is the captain of the side, declared that the team will be ready for the FIFA World Cup later in Chile. Bameye also expressed appreciation to the fans and families for their support during the Under-20 AFCON final. Don't forget that the team returned to the country on Tuesday. Well, let's talk about the Super Eagles this morning, where head coach Eric Shell has selected Moses Simon, Stanley Nwabali, Wilfred Ndidi, and Ahmed Musa among a total of 25 Super Eagles players who will execute this month's Unity Cup tournament holding in London. The Unity Cup tournament, involving Nigeria, Jamaica, Ghana, and Trinidad and Tobago, will be staged at the 17,000 capacity GTEC Community Stadium in Brentford, West London. Well, aside that one, let me inform you that for the friendly with Russia, that's another friendly game, the Super Eagles will face Russia at the Zinki Stadium in Moscow on the 6th of June. And Eric Shell has picked a total of 21 players, with captain William Trust Ekong, Osayi Samo, midfielder Fisa Odile Bashir, Rafael Onyedika, and Victor Boniface. Not forget Sadiq Umar, of course, will be joining a number of picks from the Unity Cup. And there you have the list of players invited for the Russia game as well. Now, because of our time, let's cross to Europe this morning and inform you that Tottenham Hotspur have won this year's Europa League following a 1-0 win over Manchester United on Wednesday night. Now, both teams came into the match for redemption and hoping to get their season back on track. But then it was Tottenham Hotspur who actually got the win eventually yesterday. Congratulations, Tottenham Hotspur. United were hoping that that game will be more like a redemption for them for a dreadful season. Of course, winning the Europa League doesn't only come with a trophy, but it comes with a place in the UEFA Champions League next season. So Tottenham will be representing England, will join the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool and the other three teams in representing England. Now, this victory was actually the first trophy, European trophy in 40 years for Tottenham. First European trophy in for 40 years, but of course, first piece of silverware in 70 years for Tottenham Hotspur. Congratulations to them and, of course, their boss. All right, let me also inform you, like I mentioned earlier, that Harry Kane yesterday, of course, was handed the best player in the Bundesliga, of course, following his heroics for Bayern Munich this season. Of course, the recently concluded season will actually end up being, of course, his best season in his entire career. First, ending his trophy drought by winning the Bundesliga for Bayern Munich, and of course, finishing as the top goal scorer for second successive time. And just yesterday, he was handed the player of the season. Congratulations to Harry Kane. And what a coincidence, right? While his former team was lifting the Europa League yesterday, he was being handed over the player of the year with Bayern Munich. Of course, we wish him all the very best in his career. Of course, he has also sent congratulatory messages to Tottenham Hotspur for winning that very important Europa League trophy for themselves. Of course, not just him, a number of ex-players have also talked about it. And one player who actually got a lot of people talking has to be Heung-min Son, who a few weeks ago spoke about his desire to win a trophy for Tottenham Hotspur. And of course, that has been achieved. Congratulations to Tottenham once again, and congratulations to their former player, talking about Harry Kane. Moving to boxing this morning, Manny Pacquiao has announced that his return to the ring at the age of 46, and of course, almost 4 years after his last fight. Well, the Filipino says that he will face WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios on the 19th of July in Las Vegas. Pacquiao is now aiming to become boxing's oldest welterweight world champion. Pacquiao currently holds the record for the oldest welterweight champion when he defeated Keith Thurman in 2019 to claim the WBA Super World title at the age of 40. Well, it would be nice, honestly, to see Manny Pacquiao back in the ring, but at the age of 46, I'm worried. Moving to the NBA this morning, the Indiana Pacers overturned a 17-point deficit in the fourth quarter before beating the New York Knicks in overtime to win the opening game of the NBA Eastern Conference Finals Series, 138 to 135 points. Now, the second game of the best-of-7 series takes place later on Saturday in New York. Meanwhile, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who led Oklahoma City Thunder to victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves 2 days ago in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, has been named as the NBA's most valuable player for 2024-2025 season. Congratulations to Gills. And that's sports this morning on Dominion Television. My name is Boluwaji Ogumula. Do have a wonderful day.
Welcome back from that short break. The show is still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television, and this is Trend Watch. Samson Balogun is my name.
All right, I'm Abby Dickinson. Trend Watch, where we give you stories across the
trending.
world. Trending on social media. Yes, hot gists.
All right, that's what takes us to Lagos State this morning, as Lagos State's businesswoman Adeola Diadem is in the news. And of course, you know, sometimes when women become successful, you know, you get to get all sorts of stories, and then that's exactly why she's been ranting. Why would you talk about my success being that, you know, what I got from a man? I mean, it shouldn't be like that.
It says, so, every brick is my money.
It's my money. That says she calls out a lady who actually claimed a man built her mansions. And of course, there are a lot of comments and reactions as regards to that particular story.
But because of time, we really
because of time, we
cannot
take that. But let's take the comments, because when we talk about comments on social media, sometimes it is the best place for you to be. You just relax, and then, you know, sometimes some people think a comment section is the best place for you to get therapy. You know, you get to smile, you get to frown, and you get to react.
Just like you said, when somebody is successful, they say it's a man.
It's a man. I mean,
you know, she actually said something. Okay, if it's a man thing, why don't you get your own? Well, and it's true. Well, if a man built a house for me, find your own man.
If it's a man's money, can people just mind your business? So if it's a man's money, fine. If it's our money, fine. So mind your business and stop talking ill about people.
Okay, so, let's take the next comment.
All right, I was talking about other comments here.
Easy says, envy breeds hatred. Once people dislike you, they'll never see anything good in what you do or say. I mean, I totally agree to that.
Totally agree, because
okay, I think we have another comment.
A lot of things about you. Success sometimes can be really, really frustrating for other people. And some people don't know how to manage other people's success. So if you see anyone that is being successful around you, just mind your business if you know you have nothing good to say. And of course, there's another comment here by the Only Daraj, says this lover now the weapon fashioned against Una for this social media. I think that's true, because every now and then when she sees something really interesting about her, especially in the comment section, she highlights and then make people see that, look, this is something really interesting for you to see. And you know, sometimes I would just say that success can be for anyone, either for a woman or for a man. So if you are not comfortable with someone else's success, please just take a cup of coffee.
Yeah, women that are doing
or
really
maybe buy a bottle
really
of water, drink, and then go to bed. I think that will be fine. And of course, singer Seisei is in the news.
All right, singer Seisei reveals she stopped attending a church because the pastor said they should return to hymns and stop singing New Age gospel songs.
I think that doesn't mean you should stop attending churches.
It's not enough to stop attending. You can change church if that's the issue. And is there anything even wrong with hymns?
I think the pastor is just trying to say, look, let's go back to the roots, let's go back to how it all started. And then there are claims that, you know, most of the hymns were composed by the slave masters, and then she doesn't want to buy that, and she prefers songs composed by Nigerians for Nigerians. Well, that is fine. Everybody has an opinion.
Even you have a reason for going to any church. If you're not comfortable in any church, you move. It's not a must that you must be in one church. I've
seen someone who actually talked about, you know, a pastor complained about her appearance to church, and she decided to leave that church to another church. I think that is fine. And then talking about that, our leader like that at many former churches said, my former church said something like, we need to stop singing all these New Age gospel songs in praise and worship and go back to singing hymns and only songs that are direct scripture. Guess what? I stopped going to that church, period, because I don't know how or why you would feel blessed and happy by singing some of the songs that slave owners wrote and forced them to sing and pass down through generations while, you know, beating and torturing your ancestors. Makes no sense. Do your you know, research. Ignorance is
this talk only for him matter?
You know,
because like another thing, so not, although she comes back to say not all hymns were written by slave owners. So but a lot of them were. In some cases, you're better off making up your own praise and worship songs and hymns, you know, based on scripture, if you prefer.
I mean, when you look at sense,
yeah, she had to come back because she knows that people say,
some people will actually take that out of context and then
social media, you must really be ready and have a you know, thick skin. And I think we have some comments. We have some comments and reactions to that. Aduke Luxury Store 2 says, now wow, must be stressful for the wife. Oh no, this is another story.
Well, that's another story. But then talking about comments.
Okay, comments. This one says different churches day to attend though, but we can't query your decision because you are an adult.
You have a reason to go to church or not go to church. I think that's your business.
If you're not comfortable, move to somewhere else. You're comfortable.
And then away from there, probably we should take the story of the housewife and the side chick matter that is trending on social media right now.
That's one.
You know, that's something that so many people have been talking about on social media.
These days?
And lady shares her experience as regards a text she received from the wife of the man whose number she took, or the man took her number. Regardless of the situation, they exchanged contacts, and then boom, the wife actually showed up in her DM. And you know,
the man took number of a girl.
Yes.
And the wife decided to
somehow got the number, and
how
then
did
decided
she even get the number?
Well, you know, some men are actually open when they get home. They'll either save the girl's number with something
and then
different.
You went to the girl to say what? Please.
You know, sometimes men can be like that. You know, they can just be open to their wives, and then
no, there's nothing wrong in being open, but I mean, wives should do better now.
But the wife shouldn't have actually gone to the extent.
To do what? You have not even, you don't know why she took number. You just went and something. Please.
What we talk about comments. Let's take some comments on that. That's talking about the wife and the side chick, and then the husband. It's sometimes
telling her to stop chatting with.
We have one like now. Wow. Must be stressful, receiving such kind of text from from the wife. Why can't she leave him? Marrying a cheat must be hard. I think women should also learn to manage their space. Leaving your space into someone else's space, I think that's a major problem.
It is.
Know how to manage your husband, know how to manage your wife. Talk to the third party, I think that's way out of it.
All right, there's another comment here. It says, Freshie Candace says, imagine begging a small girl not to sleep with your husband.
And even go as far as lying
just because a man chose to be irresponsible. Because what did she lie about? She said the husband had HIV.
Imagine.
Interesting. Imagine. Madam, face your life and children though, because how many girls can she be texting all the time? This is just embarrassing.
I mean,
how many?
The man is
how you Nigerian men are?
Is a constant cheat. I don't think you can. How many women would you actually?
Would you
text?
say all men cheat?
I'm not saying
majority of Nigerian men.
I'm not saying majority of Nigerian men cheat.
So what would you say?
I'm just saying a cheat will always be a cheat. So whoever is a cheat, I don't think there's a way out of it.
I'm just asking you. I know you didn't say it, but what do you say? Percentage of Nigerian men.
Percentage of Nigerian men who cheat. I think let's just leave it at the current percentage, which I don't know anyway. And of course, there's another comment saying, married men steadily stressing their wives, why can't you remain single and be promiscuous? No matter how you see it, no woman will feel good about her husband cheating. It is draining, man. So I think it's actually draining.
No woman would like it.
No man would like it too. It is actually energy sapping to know you are managing the children and then you are still managing the husband. It's like nursing, if you have 3 kids, it's like nursing 4 kids at the same time. So that
men
for me,
are still our babies anyway.
Yeah, actually.
And okay, I think
that will be all on Trend Watch.
Trend Watch for today.
We hope you enjoyed this bit, and of course, join us again tomorrow as we bring you Trend Watch Extra, where we bring you major trending stories on social media. Thank you for being a part of the show so far. The show is still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television, your channel of choice, where inspiration meets entertainment. Well, unfortunately, we have to go this morning, Abby, and our time is fast spent on the show. But of course, I want to tell you that today is Thursday, Throwback Thursday. Do something different, do something simple, and of course, let your family enjoy the coming weekend with you. Actually, I'm projecting already, so let them enjoy the weekend with you.
Family is important.
Keep being safe, keep being nice out there. Samson Balogun is my name.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us up until now. More interesting programs continues on Daybreak Live or on Dominion Television. Thank you so much. My name is Abby Dickinson. God bless Nigeria.